mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. In the black community, well, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why?
But once you get a control and an understanding of who you are, no one can use you against you. No one can ever use your mental illness against you. You've already spoke about it, so what you got?
The biggest point in life to resolve mental health is like giving a fuck about a person.
Where did you get the courage? I got the courage. The 2 words. I care.
It's Chill Will Radio, where connections will be made, advice will be given, jokes will be told, and things will get real. My name is Willis Cooks, and I'm your host. But understand this show is not meant to be used as a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Enjoy the show, y'all. Yo. Welcome to another episode of Chill Will Radio, man. Thank you on this lovely Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, whatever it is between the two. But thank you for everyone who's listening. If you're listening and tuning in right now, good looking. If you don't have the time to listen right now because you got something else going on, you're cleaning or you're at work or you're just chilling, good looking to you too, man, because you might catch this tomorrow, next month, next year, next lifetime, whenever you get the chance. Good looking to you too, man. And even more so, I always say this, thank you to those individuals who may not believe that mental health is not that important, probably because they haven't hit that phase yet, or they're just a little bit stubborn, whatever it may be. Good looking to you too, man. You probably haven't caught on yet, but you will catch on at some point in time. Today, what is this, episode 71? Episode 71, man. How was my week? My week is good. For the past few weeks, I've been speaking a lot about being overwhelmed and being spread too thin, and the transference of energy into certain areas and letting go of certain things, but also when you're letting go of certain things, carry that energy with you so you can be able to take it somewhere else. And just the difficulty within that, because it is hard. Right? Because when you let go of something, you start to realize like, hey, I have an extra hour or two to kind of chill, and that's where certain things kind of set in, right? There may be certain bad habits or certain negative habits you're trying to get away from. That may be the time for them to kind of creep back in a little bit. I know for me in particular, one of the negative habits that I built up when I was like extremely kind of like I said, I hate saying stressed out, but when I was extremely stretched too thin, me stop going to the gym. I start to notice myself getting a little bit more aggressive and being a little bit too more aggressive, gaining a little bit more weight. I started to notice my discipline wasn't as good. You just start to notice the shift, right? And to a certain extent, I think sometimes that's even more important than actually shifting, but being able to identify the shift is a thoroughly powerful thing, because you can't change anything if you haven't identified it. You can't change anything if you're not noticing it, or if you're even honest with it and trying to be accountable and telling yourself like, hey, this is where I'm at and this is what it is, and these are the things that that are happening, and this is where I kind of fell off. It's important to identify it. And a lot of the times when we identify, we say, hey, okay, this is where I'm at, but we never go ahead and put in the work to actually start, the shifting process, and once we start it, we start to realize, and I can say me in particular, start to realize that, is this something that I truly want to do, or we start to realize maybe I need to go back into the certain lifestyle that I was using, because we get so used to how we were living before to where we start something new, we start to panic just a little bit, right? Our anxiety starts to go up just a little bit because it's like, okay, this is new. But we tend to forget that anything that is new has the ability to produce some type of anxiety because it's a new thing, right? We're in an uncomfortable position, right? We are trying to learn where to go, how to do this, how fast, how slow, whatever it is, we're just trying to make it fit us. And what I've come to realize, the shifting of certain energies and getting away from certain things that shouldn't be there is very anxiety producing, maybe for me, but anxiety producing, because like I said, it's new, and it's scary because you're getting out of your comfort zone. And when you get out of your comfort zone, it's an unsafe place because you are not certain about what's next, right? You are not sure about how it's going to come, or did you make the right decision by letting certain things go, or should I go back and grab the one thing I let go? And in reality, a lot of the times what we have to be mindful of is just continue going with the flow of things, right? Because at the end of the day, things will always work themselves out. They may not work themselves out when we want them to work them out, but at the end of it all, it's going to work itself out. We just have to have, I guess, faith within the process, faith within yourself even more so, and then faith within, certain things around you that things are just going to go through. If certain things fall through the cracks, then maybe it just wasn't meant for you. We can't get so caught up in that, oh, this person didn't work out well, or that job didn't work out well. Well, no, maybe that supervisor did you a favor and saved you all of the heartache and the big old headache that comes with that position. Maybe that girl who turned you down saved you the headache, but she was like cuckoo. Maybe she saved you all of the BS that came with that relationship. So look at some of the negative things in your life as a blessing, and as a way of it keeping you away from certain things that may occur. Okay, but that's kind of just where I've been at this week. Obviously still skydiving and still working all of these 4 jobs. Well, 3 now because I quit 3 jobs and making it work. So everything's good so far. So moving on forward into the self-care piece, right? One of the things that I definitely make sure I always do every month, at least once a month, and this is something I want everyone to make sure they do at least once a month, every month. It's just to schedule an off day. Put an off day within your schedule, and I don't mean like an off day from work, because we have those, right? But I mean an off day for like everything. An off day from like the people, an off day from social media, an off day from work, an off day from your emails, an off day from everything, right? It could be once a month, it could be weekly, and if you're one of those individuals who are saying like my schedule is too tight and I don't have the ability to do it once a month or things of those sorts, okay, cool. Do it at least an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, something. Give yourself the time to really just cut everything off and just shut everything down. Preferably a day, because we have like off days, but those within those 2 off days that we have, within that 5-day week span, we're running our errands, we're washing, we're cooking for the week, we're cleaning up, so that off day isn't really an off day. It's just being busy in other areas. Schedule a monthly off day every month, every single month, where you just do absolutely nothing. No work, no emails, no social media. If you don't want to hang out with your friends, that's cool. But an off day to where you have no responsibility towards anything but to yourself. A lot of the times we forget about that. Like our number one responsibility sometimes is ourselves first. And if we forget about ourselves, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not scheduling those off days within our system, we're losing responsibility within ourselves. We're letting ourselves go where we're not being mindful of where we're at, right? That goes into the shift that I was speaking about earlier, right? When we're not paying attention to ourselves, we kind of miss the shift. We miss the shift. We're not able to pay attention to it. We start to see like, oh, I look up, oh, it's 2 months I haven't been to the gym. Oh, I look up, I done gained 30 pounds. Oh, I looked up, my diet is trash. Oh, I look up, I'm like constipated. I hadn't went to the bathroom in like 2-3 days. Like, we have to be mindful of that. The responsibility is on us though, right? The responsibility is on us to take care of ourselves. There's a lot of people who are going to encourage us. There's a lot of people who are going to kind of push us to do it. But if we don't take responsibility in doing it, if we're not accountable in doing that, it's never really truly going to work. And sometimes it is hard. Like I was saying earlier, I had 4 jobs, but I had to let one go when I had to let other things go. So things are a little bit easier now. But even with all of that stuff, I still make it an issue to take the time out to do something like every month, right? For me, obviously, skydiving, that day is something, but within that day, I'm not talking to nobody, like, at all that day. Like, I'm not talking to my girlfriend, I'm not talking to my homeboys, I'm not on social media, like, trying to, hey, I'm skydiving. It's like, no. This is a day that's good for me, you know. Same for you. Give yourself an off day to where you're not doing anything. No responsibility to anyone else, but have that full responsibility to yourself. Okay? So the one self-care piece I want everyone to implement within their self-care regimen. Schedule some form of off day within your month. A monthly off day. Not from work, but from everything. From work, from social media, to studying, to friends, but everything. It's always about resetting. It's always about resetting. We have to refresh and we reset our system from a lot of the things that we take in. All right? So, moving on forward into the main topic of the show, I have Marilyn. How are you doing?
What's up? I'm great. I'm really good.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I appreciate it, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I've been busy, but it's like the things I've been busy with, I've been really grateful for. And so I'm just like, I don't know. It's been an abundant 2020 already.
So far? Is it aligned with a lot of the things you set for yourself?
Yes. Like so much that it just kind of blows my mind, you know, seeds that I planted like 2 years ago and have just kind of been, you know, put out there, and intentions that I set. Things are just coming without me having to really ask a lot now. It's like I did the asking a while ago and then kind of let the universe work, and I'm just really excited that things are coming in, and I'm like, oh wow, like we busy, you know.
Is that a real big surprise for you this year?
It's not a surprise because I'm a very faithful person. You know, I just have a lot of faith that like things are going to work out, and I feel like that helps things work out for sure. Yeah. You know, and so I feel like when I planted those seeds, I knew that they were going to come to fruition. Like I didn't plant them and then think like, you know, which is a lot of times what we do. You know, we tend to like put our intentions out there. Well, not even plant it and forget it, but plant it but not believe it's going to happen. Got it. Be like, this soil isn't really fertile enough. Like it's probably not going to work out. We start planting it and then worrying about it. And that's not going to work. And so that used to be my MO, is I might plant things, and even though I'm a faithful person, I would still start to like worry and like feel like I have to over control everything. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, okay, I know when it's time to plant that seed and how often I need to water it, and then I'm just kind of stepping back and letting things happen the way they're supposed to.
It's really ironic that you brought that up, because that's one of the things that I struggle with a lot of the times. Is like I plant certain seeds, but it's like, okay, I'm watering it, but I'm watering it too much. And obviously you water a plant too much, the plant just going to drown and it's going to die. You know, it's never going to be able to grow. Same with, you know, me. It's I don't want to necessarily say it's a worry, but making sure that it's good enough for me. And because of that causes me to push certain things back, step away from certain stuff, put too much on my shoulders, because I'm Willis and I just think I'm like, can handle everything and I'm dope. But like, you know, putting too much into the one thing that we're trying to do without just letting it work its magic. Yep, exactly.
And it's like we tend to overwater because, again, I think we are trying to kind of over control things. It's like, okay, let me just keep like checking on this thing. But it's like I tell my clients a lot of times, you know, one of the things I practice is mindfulness. And it's like, you know, it really teaches you that like you have to have patience. You have to be able to like put things out there and then allow them to happen. It's like you don't plant tomatoes one day, dig the hole, put the seeds in there, and then the next day come like, where the hell are my tomatoes? Like it doesn't work like that. And so, you know, it's just being able to know and step back. And I think that's where a lot of holistic healing stuff comes in, is just like with stepping back, but being able to know what to step back in for you. Because like you said, it has to be for you. It has to work for you. Some people can function in a way that I can't and expend certain energy that doesn't work for me, but I have to be able to like listen, use my intuition, feel what works, and kind of constantly calibrate. And it's like, you know, I describe to my clients that like we're walking on a tightrope, but like when you see somebody on a tightrope, they have like the little balance beam in their hands and they take a step and they kind of have to balance. They don't just go the same speed the whole time. They don't just run across the thing. They would fall, and if you don't have a net, you might break your neck and die. You know what I mean? But it's like, so we constantly have to like, is there wind coming? Like, what's going on right now? Where am I at, and what do I need to calibrate so that I can find that balance.
And then sometimes, trying to make sure or trying to maintain that balance is very, I guess, anxiety producing sometimes, because it's like I have to make sure everything is right. And, if we're not looking at our relationship with control and how much are we trying to control and why do we feel like we need to control everything,
Right.
we're going to, throw things off, because there are certain things that just doesn't need to be in control. There are certain things that's just going to go regardless
Exactly.
but the second we put our hand on it is the second it like kind of mess everything up.
Right. And it's like similar to like cooking. It's like if you're cooking a bunch of dishes at one time, like you might have to put something on the back burner, and like the way that you cook that might be like you don't want to open that pot for 2 hours because you might mess it up. But at the same time, there's a pot that's boiling over in front of you, and so I think being able to have the intuition to listen and know which pot is your internal, your guide telling you need to focus on right now. So if you're getting the guidance, like I need to pull back in this area, going with that and not worrying about everything else. Recognizing that like if you're not feeling called to like attend to that right now, then probably because it's okay. But you have to, that feeling called, it's like, is it being driven by anxiety and worry and conditioning that you kind of constantly have to be dealing with things, or is it like driven by spirit, by internal guidance, by your intuition, by like that knowingness that's from a mindful place? And so it's like you have to be able to discern, like, is this anxiety or is this really like mindful direction that I'm getting? And I think that's the important thing. But once you learn that for yourself, like I feel like we're unstoppable because you know when to like.
How are you able to learn that though, kind of be able to separate the two?
That's the really cool thing, is that there's so many ways to learn it based on who you are.
Yeah.
And so like, for example, like I have clients who are visual artists and they have amazing talent. They can draw, they have these pictures in their minds and they can recreate them in the most beautiful detail. So for you, sitting down and like not having any music on and maybe just allowing yourself to doodle, you might get a thought that comes up. It's like there are certain frequencies that are healing. There are certain energies that are healing. It's like, certain music is either healing and it's going to kind of calm you down, like ASMR, and people are kind of talking like that. Like it's not going to calm you down for somebody to be screaming at you, right? And so there's certain like truths in the universe and kind of understanding like certain like truths in nature and being able to use those to work for you. So it's like if you're an artist, knowing that like that's probably your avenue, and if you can quiet your mind enough by doing things that maybe just feel good to you and feel soothing to you, that actually that's going to be your avenue to know what you need to do and know, like, do I need to take this job or do I need to get out of here? Do I need to, and so I think like that's the fun part, is like I get to like help people figure that out, and part of my journey has been figuring that out for myself. And it's like, that's fun because we're all different. We're similar, like certain types of things are healing, but the way that you find that healing is going to be different.
And it's just important, just being able to listen.
Yes.
Right? Being able to listen to everything, the energy that's shifting, the thoughts, the mindset, being able to listen to all of it. And that's a good segue into kind of, the main thing of which we're talking about today is just holistic healing, right? And the reason why I believe holistic healing is extremely important is because there are many different ways to heal. And I always say I'm an individual that is do something therapeutic versus do therapy, because everybody isn't ready for therapy. Therapy is a deep type of healing and working through type of process. You may not be ready for it, so if you're not, that's cool, but do something therapeutic. Do something that can kind of get the thing starting to move or get the water boiling a little bit. And then once it starts to get to that point, then it's like, okay, let me go back and try therapy again, which is why holistic healing is important, a very important type of thing, because it allows certain challenges to be met, because therapy isn't going to be able to hit everything. And a lot of people need to understand that therapy, for some individuals, and probably for the majority of individuals, therapy is just for 1 hour, one time a week. And therapy isn't just what's going on that couch or in that room. Therapy is what you're doing those other 23 hours or 24 hours within that day. We find something holistically to kind of bring into our household or bring into our life. It's a constant form of therapy. It's a constant form of therapeutic, setting that you're putting within your environment. So speaking about holistic type of therapy, speaking about different type of holistic modalities, is something that we're going to be speaking about today on this show. And just speaking about its importance and, you know, what types of things should we work with people and what types of things possibly may not be able to work for you. Because like I said, everything isn't for everybody, but that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't try everything.
Yes. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I think once you start to go the holistic route, there's so many different things. It's like kind of the world is your oyster, like literally like our earth, our planet. Like that's what holistic healing is about using nature, you know, to heal in some way. And so recognizing that like sound healing is an avenue, herbal healing is an avenue. Like there's all these different things. And so for people, and I can speak more on, you know, each one a little bit more, but just kind of like recognizing that really is that avenue that is going to touch us in some way. And that also doesn't take a ton of effort, because the thing with therapy that I feel like is also something that people are not aware of or advised on is really, like you said, to be effective in therapy, you have to do that work outside of the time that we're together. We spend that 50 minutes together, and then we plan and come up with things for you to work on. But like then you go back to your life and you go back to all of the things that created the anxiety or the stressors and
all
the
of that
environment.
Stuff is still
all of that
there.
Stuff is still there, and not only is it still there, but you're also like now in it. And so recognizing that there are things that help to shift that energy that you don't even have to put effort in, because therapy does take effort.
Exactly.
You know, you have to be willing to like do that work and explore those things. And I think that you're right that it's not for everybody, because your life may not even be set up for you to be able to spend the time doing the work that you kind of need to do to make those changes. But at the same time, like, can you bring a plant into your house? Because that's holistic healing, and bringing that plant into your house and like giving it a name and watering it and connecting with it and taking care of it and nurturing it. It's healing. Like there's so much data to support that taking care of plants is healing. There's so much data to support that certain types of music are healing. And so just doing certain things in the background that you don't even have to worry about, but that will start to promote that environment so you're not so activated. Because when you were talking in your intro before, you were saying like that there's this period where the new things are uncomfortable, and that discomfort is anxiety provoking, and it creates energetic activation in our body. And so if we can do things that like stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system to bring that down so that you're not in fight or flight, then you can actually absorb that healing. And so there's things that you can do to manage that. And so it's
nice. And then I really like, you spoke about two things. One of the things that stuck out to me is just the whole, our environment may not be set up for therapy at the time. You know, we may work very chaotic jobs, or we may work very, very busy jobs, and you may be a single mother with 3 kids at home and you have to work 2 jobs. And I don't know too many other therapists who are going to meet with you after 10 p.m. when all of the children are asleep, you know.
Right.
So our environment may not be set up as such. So creating that environment, such as something that we may kind of don't give any credit to, such as like putting a plant in the bathroom, or putting a plant, you know, in the room and just taking care of it, or lighting incense, you know, putting incense, having just know our time to where, you know, we have to do these things. But one of the types of holistic healing or modalities that you just kind of just grazed over, and we'll speak about a little bit more, is one of my favorites, which is sound healing. Right? And the reason why that's one of my favorites, my first interaction with it was at work. At work, and it was within a rehab center for children. I mean, for adolescents. And I remember this lady, we're in there, and I'm just like a lot of the other kids who were in there. It was the first time seeing it. This lady in there, I didn't know what sound healing was. Lady coming there with these bowls, and I'm just like, okay, what are we finna play the drums? Like, you finna, like, where's the sound coming from? Like, what? So we're in there, she cuts the lights off, and she has like candles lit up. She has it all set up and everything. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I see where it's going. And then she hits it, and then she starts the rod, or I don't know what the thing is actually called, but she starts going around the bowl, and it just starts to get louder and louder and louder. Initially, I'm thinking, like, I'm looking for the speaker. Where's your speaker at? Because I wasn't expecting it to be that loud. Where is your speaker at? Where is this coming from? And things of those sorts. So I couldn't find those speakers. Like, okay, cool. Let me stop looking for it. But then once I got my mind off of that speaker, I noticed that my whole, like, I just felt very, very loose, but at the same time, very heavy. It was a weird sort of feeling. Very weird sort of feeling because you feel the vibration of the sounds going through your body. It's like if you're in a club or if you're in your car or if you're in a studio, you hear the bass going. You're going to feel the vibrations of the sound going through your body. And what I've noticed at that time, as long as the sound was consistent, it's going to affect your body a different way. And then afterwards, when she broke it down, it's like, hey, you know, the majority of our body is water, and sound affects water way different than a lot of other things. And I'm still asking, like, okay, where's the speaker? You know, where's your speaker at? She's like, nah, this is just the bow. And I'm like, prove it to me. She started hitting the bow, and then the different sizes of the bows give different tones, and they can be a little louder than the others. So she started hitting them. I'm like, whoa. So I started to do that, like, way more often. This is like early 2017, like early 2018, I started to do that way more often. That's something I kind of fell off on a bit because sometimes it could get a little bit expensive, but that's kind of like one of my favorite because it was one of the first that I was introduced to, but it was also something that was so immediate.
Yes.
So quick to feel.
Yeah. Sound healing is absolutely one of my favorites as well. As you were sharing your story, I was just over here getting excited because I had that experience myself when I went to my first sound bath, and I talked to so many people who, you know, if I get them to be willing to go and check it out, actually have a very, very similar experience. And like even just how you described that moment where your mind is trying to figure it out, right? It's like our front brain is just like, I just have to figure this out. That logic mind is taking over. I need to understand this. But then once you let that go, then the healing, right? Then you were able to really, really experience that. And like sound healing is the thing I'll say about holistic healing and sound healing falls under this umbrella is that it's ancient.
Yeah.
If these things were around before we got, like, as long as we've been a species, we've had these forms of healing. And the problem is that we got cut off from them a very long time ago. We had these things taken from us, and we're now rediscovering them. And so I'm very fascinated with like history, and I watch a ton of documentaries and stuff, and watching this documentary a long time ago, but actually not that long ago, a few years ago, on ancient Egypt, and people have been trying to figure out what the pyramids are for a very long time.
They will always.
What are they? What did they use them for? We don't understand. Were they tombs? No, well, not all of them are tombs. What are these for? Well, they've actually found that they are sound healing chambers, that they resonate certain frequencies, and so the shapes of the buildings when you go in them, so if people were sick and needed healing, they would go into one of the buildings, into a specific room, and receive the frequency. They would play tones, and then it would resonate kind of similar to what you experienced in the sound bath, but then the whole room would be a healing chamber. And so it's like there are certain frequencies that are healing, there are certain colors that are healing, there's certain, and so again, when we can tap into that, you don't have to do the work, and your body doesn't, you can just receive it. And I think that's so powerful. But I think part of the thing is that we've been conditioned to feel like, what is this? And to be kind of like, you know,
this is creepy, this is weird,
this is witchy, this is, you know, this is woo woo, like all of these things, this isn't for me. But it's like, and I think that's where, as a therapist and having a relationship with somebody, you can really come in and kind of help them become comfortable, because as a therapist, we understand our client, we can speak their language, and kind of get people to just try it one time. Just try it one time. If you don't experience anything, find a free one. You know, I know resources in LA and different places where there can be free options, so maybe you don't have to pay for it, but you can just experience one time and see what it's like. You know, and I also think having people who look like us doing these healing practices are super important too. I know an amazing Black sound healer in LA, Black woman, and that
need her
really, for sure. Her name is Fontice, and so I gotta give you her IG, but she's amazing, and so that helps, right? It's like that just kind of takes away a lot of the like, okay, what are you gonna do to me? You know, what is this? Because I think that like the more we can be open and the more we can find ways to be open, we're able to receive more. You can't receive with a closed fist. Exactly. You can't receive with a closed heart. And so we have to find things that we can be open to. And sound healing, I find, is one of the things that connects with people the most. Everybody connects with sound and connects with music in some way.
Such a simple
feel
thing.
The vibration. I mean, even people who are deaf and can't hear sound feel the vibration of the music and can connect with it. And so that's it's accessible.
And exactly what you were speaking about in terms of us fighting it and us being closed off in the beginning of it, that's actually going to make the experience a whole lot worse, you know, because we're fighting it. You know, it's like those two forces are colliding with each other,
right? And
it's not going to be beneficial,
right,
at all,
right?
But
you can't heal in fight or flight mode. Like you can't heal when you're in that state.
No, you have to just let go. Another holistic healing modality or treatment that I've done that I really like is float therapy.
Yeah,
I've done that, and I spoke about this last week on the show. And I did that just by like googling, you know, different type of modalities. And I was on Google one day and I seen this clam like pod thing, and I was, what is this? And then once I started to do research on it, I'm like, oh, okay, so we're just taking a bath. Like we just sitting in the tub of water. Like, that's kind of dirty, but I hope they're cleaning it.
Right? You're like, what are they doing? They draining this tub?
Exactly. Like, are they coming forth in it? You know. So, but you know, that goes back into, you know, being open to it, because I had went back as I was making fun of it. I had to go back into, you know, the sound bath that I did, and I was like, okay, that actually worked. Let me actually be open. And then when I went in it, it was initially kind of like weird and strange because, you know, I haven't taken a bath. I haven't floated or submerged my body in water in like years, you know, because I'm just used to taking showers, right? So just the whole aspect of floating was like kind of strange. But as you said, once you kind of just let go, you know, things start to get a little bit better.
Yes.
For me, it was I let go and it's like, okay, this is cool. But then once I started to hear my heartbeat, I was like, okay, this is kind of strange. But the next thing I know, an hour and a half had went by like that. You know, it put me in a place to where I was too mindful, but it also put me in a place to where I lost track of time. And when we get to a place to where we're able to lose track of time, I believe that's so extremely beneficial, because you're not worrying about all of the different things. It's like if you're playing a video game or doing something that you love, you can do it for hours on end because you're not thinking about the time. You're just mindful of where you're at.
Right.
So within that particular setting, because I was extremely mindful of where I at, that hour and a half went by in like 5 minutes. I was like, yo, you stole my money from me. I wasn't here for like an hour and a half. You know,
that's funny.
That's one of the things that I would highly recommend for a lot of individuals who have trouble with being mindful. Obviously, if you're okay with being within, you know, a tight-knit space, right? Because they have the place I went to, it was like a pod, a clam-like type of thing. You just lay in it. But they also had like this chamber type place for like a lot of tall folks.
Okay.
But that's something I would highly recommend for a lot of individuals, as long as you're okay with being, you know, in enclosed spaces and in the dark. Well, you can have a light on and like a light going on in there, you know, but I chose to have it like pitch black with no sound or anything, and it was just like, okay, this is nice. This is nice.
Yeah, flow therapy, I haven't done it before. It's something that's like on my list of things that I definitely want to check out. But I think, again, it's something that, like, when you were talking about that moment where you kind of just like, it's like there's a moment of surrender. Yeah. When we just kind of release, and you know when it happens. Yeah. Like, you recognize when it happens, and it's like that shift from like anxiety into that mindful space. Exactly. And then once you're in there, time doesn't exist. Things don't exist. Everything kind of floats away, and it's like you're able to really, again, experience a deeper level of healing that we just don't have access to most of the time, and especially not that quickly. And so it's like, even just that, having to acclimate to the sound of your own heartbeat, like that moment, like that was like, okay, you reached a surrender, but then you had to surrender again. You had to go deeper, and it's like you acclimated to that, you know what I mean? And then ended up completely losing track of time.
I had to surrender to something that was already a part of me.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was weird.
Yeah, for sure. And you said you were like, you got too mindful. And I think, like, I don't think there's a such thing as too mindful, but it was like you got so mindful that you became aware of a whole nother layer of your own existence. And then you had to acclimate to that, but you did. Yeah. And that's the thing I think with holistic healing that I tell people is that our bodies are already calibrated to healing. Like, our whole energy is constantly trying to go to balance, and that's how we are. And if we're just able to, like, let our bodies do what they need to do, kind of like stop over controlling things, surrender, have those moments like that's where really the change happens. It's like you're talking about two specific situations where you really felt something impactful and you didn't have to do anything. So this idea that we have to like grind and do, it's like, no, we need to probably like back off, like take the foot off the gas, like, you know what I mean? Fall back a little bit and let our bodies actually take over and let our intuitive systems and nature take its course. You know, animals aren't constantly trying to like control everything. They follow nature, you know.
But that's going to cause a person to let go.
Yes. And
letting go is a very scary thing because we don't have control over it. Like, we live in a world in which my hands need to be on everything, and if it's not, I'm like tripping out. You know, but letting go of a lot of things is, and letting our body do the work that it's supposed to do.
Yes.
Because like you said, our body is always going to calibrate itself and get back, you know, to its even playing field.
Yep.
When you're sick and you're not hungry, that's your body telling yourself, don't put anything in me right now because I'm trying to heal myself.
Exactly.
When your body just knocks out, that's like, okay, your brain is telling you, okay, I'm finna shut down so I can heal. You know, so your body is always going to do these things to get it back to even, to calibrate itself, but it's important that we always listen to it.
Yes.
Why do you think it is difficult for us to listen to our body when our body is giving us those signs? Because they're always there. We just don't listen to them.
I think we're not taught to listen to the right things. I think like a lot of mindfulness techniques and stuff, I think if we had learned this stuff when we were little, we would know how to listen to our bodies. But it's something that like it's natural, but at the same time we're kind of taught the opposite. Like, we're taught to over medicate symptoms, and so it's like if you have a headache, rather than saying like, why do I have this headache, what's the root of this headache, am I doing too much, am I stressed, am I anxious, like there's so many things that can cause that. But if you take a minute to kind of ask yourself some questions and try to figure it out, usually you can find something for yourself.
You realize I haven't drunk enough water,
right? Exactly. That's oftentimes the first one with a headache, right? And so it's like you can start to do that, but we're taught not to rely on our own systems of healing. We're taught to seek outward. We're taught to spend our money, pay these people to sell us back basically the plants that we have access to and are already, I mean, every medicine is derived from some sort of plant that they've synthesized. And so recognizing that, like, it's not our fault that it's hard, because so much of the system is created to keep us away from these healing practices and to keep us away from like understanding and knowing ourselves and being able to heal ourselves without having to like pay somebody else to do it for us. But I think like recognizing that like the more we can allow ourselves, like you said, to listen and to start to kind of connect with these natural things and to find ways to bring it in our lives, and then also not shame ourselves and communities as a whole for struggling with this stuff and not having access to it.
Exactly.
You know, it undoes it, you know.
Not shame ourselves in the community, but also not shame those individuals who are deciding to take part in those holistic types of healing.
For sure. Right.
Because we make fun of those individuals sometimes.
True.
Like, and I could even say myself, growing up, you know, you start to see little cartoons or, you know, see little people like meditating and sitting with their legs crossed and just, you know, any certain positions. It's like, oh, you do yoga, or you're weird. Like, I even remember as a kid, I would be like, oh, you do yoga? That's for women. Like, that's gay. And it was just like making fun of those, being shameful of those sorts of things is kind of something that we have to get away from.
And it's similar to like making fun of the kid who's really smart in school and actually is trying, right? It's like in certain communities you get made fun of if you try too hard, and and it's like, I think again, we're conditioned to like stop healing, and even within our own community, and to try to keep each other from it. And so like that shaming people for finding these new things and trying something new and allowing themselves a new level of healing. It's like that's got to stop, because it creates barriers, it creates a disconnect in the community, and creates this like kind of us versus them, when it's like we're all just trying to get together. We're all just trying to get better, right?
Definitely.
You know, and so I think that's a big challenge. And I think like the more people are sharing what they're doing, the more people are open about it. That's where I think like honestly like celebrity culture kind of comes in handy, because now this stuff has become very right?
Yeah,
you know
it's
what
the
I
cool
mean?
thing
like
on the block.
metaphysical stuff and spirituality, and everybody's pulling birth charts and getting readings and all this stuff, and I love it because it's like this is my world, so I'm geeked about it. And at the same time, like they can help make it more normalized. They can help make it, you know what I mean, more part of the accepted part of the community. I mean, Janae Aiko, like her whole new album is sound healing, and she does sound. She's trained in sound healing, and now is like giving that back and sharing that. And so I think that helps, because then like what's cool and what's okay to do changes really quick, and especially now with like social media, it changes so fast, like I can't really keep up. And so I think that in one way that's an asset, because people are able to like do these things and not be shamed for them and start to feel more connected.
Definitely. Now, you are a Reiki teacher.
Yes, I am.
Can you explain to a lot of folks what Reiki is and how does it help and all of these things?
I can. So Reiki is universal life force energy, universal love energy. And Reiki is a healing modality. So that's what Reiki is.
Got it.
And so, so I would say that's what the term means, but that's also like what the energy is. That's what you're channeling when you're working Reiki. So when somebody comes and gets a Reiki healing from me, whether it be distance or in person, and I'm doing my work with them, I'm channeling universal life force love energy through my hands, because that's kind of our tool in Reiki is your hands. And so the cool thing about Reiki is that it has been around forever, like all of these holistic healing practices, and we're now reclaiming. And Reiki, the term Reiki was coined in 1865 by a Japanese doctor, Dr. Mikao Usui. And so the traditional Reiki that we know in that term is he basically had a crisis in his life, personal and professional, and went back to a Buddhist school where he had been studying as a child and took a bunch of classes. He did like a retreat. I think it was like a 21-day retreat or something, where he was praying, he was fasting, he was meditating, all of that. And he had this enlightening moment where he like kind of just like spontaneously rediscovered Reiki. And I say rediscovered because part of his studies, he was seeing different symbols and things like that through the text. And so it's a long story, but it's an interesting story. And so long story short, he spontaneously was able to start to heal himself through this enlightenment that he had in this moment. And he went out and immediately started teaching. So he opened a Reiki school and immediately started teaching. There was a huge earthquake like 1 year later in Tokyo, and thousands of people died. The city was devastated, and he went out and was trying to heal as many people as he could, but then he realized he needed to start sharing it with other people. And so he taught other people at that time, and that's kind of how it started to expand and become a manualized practice. But it's been around for forever. It's also been coined like in the most kind of common thing that American culture we would know about is laying hands on people in church, right? Like you go up and the preacher lays hands on you and people feel healed, and people experience healing, and it's a very real thing for people who are experiencing it, right? And so that's Reiki. It's basically, but Reiki is kind of a manualized version of that. And the cool thing with Reiki, the way Dr. Usui taught it, and then his students that extended it afterwards after he passed, made it so that we can use Reiki, because Reiki is energy. Energy transcends time and space. And so the cool thing with Reiki is you can go back and do Reiki on an event that happened, on a traumatic event. So as a therapist, I can work with a client. We can go back and do Reiki and send Reiki to an event that happened that was traumatic for that client, and it really creates healing around that. In the past, you can send Reiki ahead to something. If you're like anxious for a test or something's coming forward, you can learn how to channel Reiki across time, and then also distance. And so it's great for distance healing. So I'm able to have clients all over the country who are just straight Reiki and energy healing clients who I meet with, and I channel distance healing.
And how is that done when it seems like a lot of Reiki is, used with your hands? How is that done, long distance, if you're working with people outside?
So you still do the same thing. So there's a couple of different ways to do distance people, because we have FaceTime and Zoom and things like that, you can actually do it, get online with the person and do a video session, and you would just do the same thing. But because, again, energy transcends distance, if I'm channeling it to you, the most important thing for Reiki is the intention. If you are setting the intention that I'm doing this healing, I'm sending this energy. The other important thing about Reiki is that as a practitioner, you don't have any power. Like, you're not actually doing anything. You're just a channel. You're just allowing what's already needs to happen and the healing that person needs to kind of come to them. Yeah. And so I think with that, distance doesn't matter. And so people do Skype distance healing sessions, but you can also heal somebody without being in the room with them. Yeah. You can also heal somebody without even having a set time. Like, I have clients where we set a time and we don't even get online. I've never seen them. I've never had a conversation with them, but I channel them healing at a certain time, and then they're able to access it whenever. So I love that about it, because therapy is limited, and in therapy we're working with the mind, we're working with thoughts and words, and it's limited, but energy is endless and unlimited.
Yeah. So to a lot of the people who would say, like, oh, this is fake, this is some type of pseudoscience, and to a lot of vendors who may be struggling with it, right? Because I've tried to take one of my friends to a sound bath type of, event, and I remember he was like, nah, we finna sit there and just listen to like some noise, like, you tripping. Outside of that individual just being a little bit more open to, the actual process or the practice or that form of healing, what would you say would be one of the ways to be able to assist people with, starting that type of holistic type of journey?
I think giving people information is helpful.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a skeptical person. Like, I've always believed in energy and like the other things, you know what I mean? And so for me, it wasn't a challenge, but for people who are skeptical, that's fine. Like, have a healthy level of skepticism. That's what works for you. But again, be open. And so you can be skeptical and be open. And so being open is showing up and saying, well, I don't know if this is actually going to do anything, which is kind of what you did. You didn't know what it was, but you showed up.
Exactly.
And then you experienced it. And so once people show up and they experience it, oftentimes that skepticism melts away because they experience it. And to get people to that point, I think recognizing, again, there's different avenues for different people. And so it's like, okay, well, you might not find value, or you might not see how Reiki can work for you, but what about sound healing? What about something else?
And that's the most important thing that I try to help a lot of people, come across, right? Is that every sort of coping skill or every sort of modality is not going to work for you, right? Journaling doesn't work for me. Like, I am not that person, but it works for a lot of people.
Okay. Have you tried ranting into like a voice memo? Because that's what I tell people who don't like to write, don't like to sit down, dear diary, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not for everybody, but like sitting down and just putting your voice memo on and just like.
Not into a voice memo in particular, because my issue with journaling is I never go back to it.
You don't need to.
You don't need to, but I never go back to it, and then it's just like it's too much of a process. So for me, what I do is I always go to my car and I just have conversations with myself. So I guess ranting without the voice memo thing.
Right. So it's like you're ranting, you're just not recording it, you're just not saving it anywhere. Right. So you're still getting it out. And I think that's the thing, is journaling is just getting the energy out. It's like, we can't just think it out. Like, when it's just going around in circles in your head over and over again, like, it's not going to make sense.
Exactly.
It's not going to.
Because being able to see it is so much more effective. Being able to hear it is so much more effective than just thinking it in your mind.
Right.
Because now you're able to put something on it. And when you're able to put something on it, it comes that much more easier to kind of get through it.
Totally.
Or to understand it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And there's science behind that too. And so it's like going back to kind of like the science behind Reiki. Like, there's a process called entrainment, and I'm not a physicist at all, but there's a phenomenon in physics called entrainment where a scientist a couple hundred years ago put two clocks on a wall and had the pendulums going at different speed, different force, and they ended up aligning together at some point, because that's what happens. They're going to line up with the frequency, and the stronger force is going to bring in the weaker. the weaker force. And so that's pretty much what Reiki is. And so it's recognizing, channeling that energy. If you can channel this healing energy or sound healing energy, your frequency is going to align with that healing frequency. That's why crystals work for people, because if you are holding on to crystals, hold energy, and they have a frequency. And so even if you have it on you, I have it in my bracelet, I don't have to do anything, but it's gonna calibrate my energy to that. And so there's science behind it. So for people who are skeptical, like, there's information out there to kind of help you understand what's going on. But again, like, being open to new information, because we've been taught certain things only work in a certain way, but that's just not true. We've been taught a very limited amount, and the more people are willing to like let themselves be open to new things, like you know, that's really where like real healing comes in, and not just where we're kind of like spinning but not really getting to the root of it.
And it's creating a lifestyle of healing.
Yes.
It's creating a lifestyle of healing, and that's, to me, that's what's most important. It's creating this lifestyle of healing, and not just going to therapy to get over this one little thing, or to figure out what I need to do to get through this one little thing, and just make my way through it. It's like, no, we need to create a lifestyle of healing. That's why, you know, some of us, we may walk around with the crystals. That's why we may, you know, have certain meditative things on our phone. That's why we may, you know, go to these things, you know, more than one time a week. That's why we may have these plants in our home. That's why we may have, you know, all of these chakras and meditate on a daily basis, because it's a lifestyle. It's something that is always going to be there, because the energy is always going to be there. And then the energy is always, you know, going to shift, right? Especially when you're coming, especially within the helping fields we're in, right? We're dealing and we're working. I don't even want to say dealing, but we're coming across a lot of different types of energies all throughout the day, whether it be positive or negative, whether it be traumatic, whether it be, you know, peaceful. We're always counteracting these energies. And this is something I was speaking about yesterday on the panel that I was on. It's we take in a lot of people's energy, but we also have to be extremely mindful to detox ourselves, you know, with the energy that comes to us. Because the energy is not just going to escape that person and just stop. It's kind of like you're a cup and the other person is just the water. I'm just going to pour it on you. And now you not only have your energy, but you also have that person's energy as well, mixing together. So sometimes you may start to think negative thoughts, or you may start to randomly feel negatively. Like, there are certain times in which I realize, like, okay, I may have, let's say, a tough session with a client, and then when I leave that session, my attitude is messed up throughout the entire day because of that 1 hour session and the energy that, you know, was given unto me within the session. It's important to be mindful of the energy that's coming your way and how to detox it. This holistic lifestyle, right? And therapy could be a part of it as well. Psychotherapy could be a part of it as well. But this holistic lifestyle is thoroughly important when it comes to detoxing the energy that comes into your life.
Oh, for sure. It's like we carry around energy, and then we transfer other people's energy onto other clients. And like, as a therapist, right, you're seeing back-to-back clients. One person comes in with negative energy, and then that's in the room, and then now that's on the next client that comes in. And so one of the things I love about Reiki is it's not just about learning how to like you can channel Reiki to anything once you learn how to do it. You can channel it to people, you can channel it to spaces. And so I open up a Reiki circle when I see my clients at the beginning of the session, when I come in my office, and then I close it when I leave, just to kind of keep the lightness of the energy moving. And it's interesting because a therapist who a colleague of mine just started her own Reiki journey, and she was like, I just can't believe how much of a difference it makes for me not holding on to and absorbing my client's energy, and then transferring it on to the next client that comes in that maybe didn't get as good of a session with me because I'm in an icky space from whatever else happened. And she was just like, it's only been a couple of weeks, and like, so much is already different. I just feel a sense of peacefulness, a sense of kind of well-being that I haven't experienced. And it's like, and this was somebody who was like not for it, you know? So I just think trying things, being willing to try things, like try it once. If it's not for you, that's fine. There's so much else.
What's the response like from your clients when you're implementing Reiki into your specific practice?
So it's interesting because some of my clients, that's not a part of our work together.
Yeah.
You know, I don't do it with all my clients because that wouldn't be clinically appropriate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like that's something that I'm into. I find it helpful, but what I'm finding are a lot of clients are coming to me looking for that because I advertise for it. I have it on my website. I make it clear that that's what I'm doing, and so clients of mine who are kind of coming to it, like maybe they start to realize as we're working together, or they have some interest, or they ask about it, and I start to share it with them. Mixed results. People, if they experience it, usually they find some benefit. They find it helpful, and people want to learn to start to implement it for themselves and kind of start to use those tools themselves. And so it's one of those things where I don't really introduce it to people who I don't know are already willing. You know what I mean? As a therapist, there's certain interventions that you just don't bring to every client. And so part of it is I advertise, and people know that that's part of what I'm bringing to the table. And also, if I get a client who's referred to me who's not into that stuff at all, we might not ever go there together, but I do have crystals in a bowl in my office, and sometimes people touch them and look at them, and sometimes people don't even notice that they're there paying attention. And so I think going back to that, being authentically yourself, like I'm authentically myself, and so these are the things that I'm into. So you're going to see that just because of who I am. But at the same time, I'm only going to bring that into the therapeutic relationship if it makes sense. And once I feel like the person is open and kind of ready for that. And then it's a positive response. People just really are like, wow. It's very similar to like the sound healing response. And even just like, I do Reiki with some of my clients, but I also send people to yoga. If I know there's somebody who needs that, I send people to dance therapy. I send different things. And so,
because a lot of the ways we need to heal they're not what we exactly think, right? A lot of it. I love it when a client comes and we're doing therapy and we're working a lot of these things, and then this light bulb goes off in their head, and it's like, yo, this wasn't what I actually thought I needed help with.
Yep. That's some of the best moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could be something as small as, like, I remember I had a client probably like a year or two ago, and he was like, all I needed to do was just clean up my room, and everything just laid out perfectly. And
you know what? That's holistic healing.
Yeah.
Clean up your room. Organize your space, like clear the space, like feng shui, like energy, the way that flow in a space and in a room, like that's healing. And so that's one of the biggest things people can do. So that moment where he's like, I just needed to clean up my room, and things fell into place. And it's probably, that might have been the thing that he wasn't listening to. He might have had a to-do list of 50 things he needs to do, of business this and hustle here and do, all of these things. But like in the back of his mind, he keeps getting this like, but you probably just need to clean up your room. Maybe you could just clean up your room.
But it seems so simple that we're like, nah, this ain't what it is.
But that's the thing. We're calibrated to healing, so it should be simple. I think it should be simple. I don't think it should be so hard. I don't think, like, living is hard. Like, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. It's hard enough. I don't think that, like, healing is supposed to be this difficult, stressful thing. I think, like, it's supposed to feel good. It's supposed to challenge you. There's some discomfort in healing, but it shouldn't just be, like, so difficult. And so sometimes, the easy thing is actually, like, try that. We need to kind of change our mindset to like maybe I should just try the thing I think I've labeled as easy, right? Because we label stuff as easy, and that might not even be the case.
Might not be the case at all, but it also could definitely be the one thing that you need.
Exactly.
Let's not be so quick to push something off to the side. Let's not be so quick to dismiss things. It could be the one thing that your body is just yelling to you, like, I need. So it could be simple. Moving on forward into the question that kind of just pops up in my head. The one word that kept being brought up within the show today is energy, right? And energy is a term that I would say, and energy is a term that I would say is fairly new to me. And understanding how energy manifests itself in many different ways, in many different forms, and understand how energy is transferred, not only through other people, but through objects, right? Such as our phones, or let's say, such as our phone, or a picture, or a table, a smell. How energy is transferred through people, through objects, through smells, through taste, through anything really out there. My question when it comes to energy is, and in relation to a lot of these different modalities, a lot of these different holistic modalities. And I think we only spoke about really 3 kind of main ones, but like you said, there are many different types of ways. Like putting a plant and watering a plant is a holistic approach.
Yes.
Right? If you have an incense, and this incense is the one thing that you do at 10 o'clock every night before you go to bed, that's your holistic approach. You know, so there are many different ways in which you can go
Mantras
down.
are a holistic approach, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Mantras are a holistic approach. Positive affirmations, they're
Exactly.
a holistic approach.
Yes.
We're doing a lot of holistic things without even noticing it. You know, we're doing a whole lot
Very
of
true.
holistic things without even noticing it. But when it comes to the energy and how it's transferred and things of those sorts, what would you say would be the one thing a lot of people needs to do when it comes to identifying when negative energy is coming towards them? How could they be able, or what should they do when they begin to realize it, when that negative energy is coming towards them? So like for me, the one thing I always try to make sure I do is I ask myself, Willis, how are you feeling right now? After like something tough, right? So we're helping professionals. So we work in many different areas in which we see bad things. So like, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, you know, I work at a hospital, so I see a lot of people die. And I always ask myself, Willis, how are you feeling right now? And then I always go back to that feeling later. Willis, are you feeling this way now, currently? If it shifts a little bit negatively, it's like, okay, maybe that energy is still stuck there. Maybe I need to get it off a little bit. You know, I always ask myself certain little questions to kind of figure out where my energy meter is at that time when I see negative things coming my way. So how do you think, or what do you think could be some of the ways in which we can identify when those negative things are coming towards us?
I think paying attention to your gut is important. That like they call
That's
our
like
gut
the hardest thing
reaction.
in the world.
It's hard, but it's like you have to train yourself to do that. And so I think part of it is a lot of these things take practice. Like unfortunately, we've been conditioned to not be able to know when we're in a fight or flight mode. We just are kind of automatically going through it before we realize, and we might realize it after it's already over, right? Once we're out of that state. But part of needing to do that and kind of to understand your energy and be aware of it is to be kind of constantly practicing different things. And again, going back to like there's so many different tools to do that, but like giving yourself permission and also making and having some accountability with how you practice it, you know, is really important. And then I think also doing certain things to just kind of like protect yourself in general. I think a lot of times people, you know, in the ways that we protect ourselves in the physical world, it's important to be protective and protect ourselves like in the energy world as well. And so there's certain things that are like kind of just like energetic maintenance, you know. And so for some people, prayer is protective.
For real.
You know, that's something that is very important to you, making sure that you're doing that, making sure that you are staying connected to that. And when you're doing it, being in the moment, not just like allowing yourself, because sometimes we become like we have like a memorized thing that we say, and we you know, get down on our knees and we say the same thing every day. Okay, God, you know, blah blah blah, but we're not actually allowing ourselves to feel the impact of the words. And so it's like saying it slower, praying without a direction, just saying what's on your heart, you know, switching it up and doing something, but practicing whatever works for you. And so for me, yoga is one of the things that is super important for maintaining my energy. And so I have to commit to doing that. And it's like, that's been a challenge, but I have to find ways to like make sure that I'm showing up for that, because I already know what works for me.
Exactly.
And I think like we usually have a good idea of where to start for ourselves. We oftentimes just don't feel like we have the permission to do it or the space to do it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for coming through, man.
Of course. This is dope.
Hey, how can people get a hold of you, reach you, or things of those sorts?
Yes.
Especially if they want to try out Reiki.
Yes. So my website is my full name, Marilyn Julia. It's MarilynJulia.com. So on that website, you can find my private practice, which is a mindful way counseling, where you can start to work with me there. And then you can also find my podcast there, and kind of that's like the hub for everything that I do. So go to that website. And then also on Instagram, I'm like active-ish on Instagram. I get spurts, you know, sometimes I
Yeah.
post every day and then sometimes I don't post for 2 months, but you can contact me there and reach me there. So that's Marilyn Julia _is, same spelling, obviously.
There you go.
And then also I have a Facebook page for my practice. It's a Mindful Weight Counseling on Facebook as well. And that you can also find the therapist that I supervise as well.
There you go. To all those individuals who are listening, thank you. If you're going to be hearing this later on tonight, tomorrow, or whenever you get the chance, thank you. Good looking to you too, man. But as always, always understand, ain't no wealth without your mental health. So please stay blessed. Take care of yourself. Be great, y'all. Peace.